that old voice network where you were having to kind of manage all of that sort of stuff on-prem via multiple SBCs all over the place, as you rightly said, it is complex and it does come with an overhead. But if you choose your architecture right, you can push all that into the cloud. And there are companies like PureIP and others that can bring all of these different applications together in the cloud for you.
Hey everybody, welcome to this briefing. We've been talking a lot about contact center options lately in the Teams world. We've got Connect, Extend, Unify, Teams Phone Extensibility. There's also obviously standalone contact center solutions, and there's more and more happening in that CX space. I've jumped on with Alistair, who's at BCM1 PureIP. Alistair, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you rightly said, I work for BCM1 PureIP. In that space, I look after the professional services teams, which is generally around sort of Teams deployments, around sort of SBC architectures on site, and the project management.
Awesome. So PureIP's got all the options in the house in terms of direct routing service, operator connect, like direct connections to various big contact center vendors, and a range of global customers that are doing pretty much every option. But to kind of take it up a level, what conversation are you having with customers when they're either already on the Teams journey or they're moving to Teams around their CX options?
I think the first port of call would be customers sort of looking at now, what are their realistic requirements now, and what are their workflows looking like now, and then what are they going to potentially looking like in the sort of next 12 to say 24, maybe 36 months. And the reason for that starting point is that actually there are options to maybe fill a gap now, plug the gap a little bit by leveraging existing features. There are some like medium-term things that are like quick to stand up, or maybe if it's going to get big quickly, there's probably another discussion around a bigger integration going out to one of sort of standalone platforms. But I mean, the good thing is that by starting with that conversation about what you want to achieve when, you can kind of ramp up your service slowly or quickly, whichever you sort of want. So I think that's the first port of call, is like what are they trying to achieve and when are they trying to achieve it as a first port of call.
Yeah, so kind of abstracting any solution or platform conversation just into what are you actually doing, business requirements.
Yeah.
And I guess that's great because we've got so many options kind of now in terms of, you can go full on big boy contact center, you can go native call queues and alternate queues app somewhere in the middle ecosystem. Like, are you finding customers are largely plonking on kind of one solution, expanding that out, or are they mixing and matching those different capabilities?
Yeah, I think just to start with, because of the kind of conversations that we're having and the PSTN footprint, we get into a lot of conversations around what can teams do now, and then what can teams do with essentially like bolt-ons. So I kind of think about it in two ways. Like Teams itself is a phone system, and it does have queuing, it does have the ability to have some of that kind of management, but it's an enterprise voice system out and out. Really, it's not really a contact center. But what you might find is that companies decide to mix and match a little bit, and it might be related to, say, internal workflows. What we need to achieve from those guys is we might need to achieve some regulatory sort of requirements. We might need to just enhance the team experience a little bit, but actually we don't need to do a lot of crazy call routing. We're not looking at numbers and routing into different places, that kind of stuff. And so initially you could say, well, we could do a bit of a mix and match there, because we can add on some apps into Teams. We can add on call recording easily. We can add some dashboards easily, and we can go for Teams queues, which is going to improve that team experience. And that might be okay for some of the internal workflows. And so initially, without really too much of a spend and without too much of a huge project, you can bring together some of those internal requirements. But the mix and match bit would then come into the next kind of conversation. And because we're generally sort of talking about Teams here, it does lend itself easily to having a what does Teams contact center look like? And what that means is like an integrated Teams contact center. So, we've got this PSTN architecture. How do we leverage it and give ourselves something a little bit more? Can we give ourselves some more ability to do call routing? Do we need a little bit more from a management information sort of perspective? Do we need sort of to control inbound, outbound call flows, that kind of stuff? And that kind of gets you into that contact center space that you were talking about there, with those different levels with like connected, extend, and unify. But the key thing there is that you can easily take those calls, and if you choose the right model there and you're wanting to stay sort of native to Teams, you can bring those PSTN calls into Teams via direct routing or Operator Connect, or calling plan if you want to, and you can put some of them off to those Teams queues that we just talked about. You can push others out via, say, the extend model. Without moving them back out of Teams again into third-party apps. So you can use that extend model to bring the numbers in, control them via those resource accounts, and push them back. You are slightly sort of beholden to the capabilities of the APIs at that point in time. But if some of those applications are meeting your requirements, then it's a bit of a quick win. You're staying native to the whole platform. You're essentially following an enhance and an extend sort of model by utilizing everything you've got there and mixing and matching. So that one does crop up quite a bit, and unless you're then sort of having that scale conversation. I think a lot of the times when the mix and match kind of goes away a little bit, it's more like, well, yes, we've got a few things going on here, but actually we've got a big requirement. It's probably going to be one of the bigger platforms where we need to start pushing out to. We've got a lot of customized, bespoke sort of call flows.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference, I think, when you get to like, we're going to meet the contact center manager, and there's a contact center manager in each region, and there's a team, and there's reporting, and then you're like, oh, okay, their expectations of the contact center team is different, and sometimes they just want to own their own destiny as well. Like they're like, well, we want to pick one of these platforms, and I guess that's where it gets interesting with PSTN connectivity, because from a pure IP perspective, you can kind of mix and match those different options, and you're not set in stone. It's not like you're setting up separate trunks for every single scenario with different ranges and then they're fixed forever. You can actually kind of change that around.
Yeah. It is an interesting option there, because what we just talked about in that first part there was leveraging Teams. It's sort of staying native to Microsoft architectures, and you can take that sort of final jump into Dynamics 2 with extensibility. But there's also an argument to say you don't have to use all that sort of stuff. You've got another option of maybe going for the integration route. So you can choose really any platforms, any other platforms you've got in your network, any other applications that you want to be using, and sort of essentially bring back the kind of concept of a voice network. You can plug all these different applications in together, get them all to utilize the PSTN that you've already gone through a sort of cloud replacement on, and bring them together into a voice network to work together. You don't necessarily have to have Teams integrated applications. You can integrate a different layer.
And I guess
pros.
That's interesting. Like going back into the olden days when I used to be a lot more hands on SBCs, we would literally do that. We would have a global SBC architecture. We would control the different trunks, and like thinking back to finance customers, some would go off to dealer boards and turrets, some would go off to the classic PBX, some would go off to what was Link and Skype Business at the time, and we'd have to manage all that routing globally. It's the same kind of concept, but now you can do that in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to a certain extent that's why some of the discussions in that kind of direction they didn't drop off, but kind of took a bit of a back seat. Everyone was moving to the cloud, and there was all these easy options, the Operator Connect, API based things that will fit into Teams, and really the management overhead and the sort of technical overhead are reduced. But that's not to say that's gone away, because that old voice network where you were having to kind of manage all of that sort of stuff on-prem via multiple SBCs all over the place, as you rightly said, it is complex and it does come with an overhead. But if you choose your architecture right, you can push all that into the cloud. And there are companies like PureIP and others that can bring all of these different applications together in the cloud for you. So you don't have to bring it down onto your own SBCs, do that integration, and then when you move to another region, do it again and again. You can just you can integrate those back into the cloud and then use the cloud as your sort of routing engine between these multiple applications. And it's going to allow you to, yes, utilize Teams, yes, yes, you can still go through the same Teams leverage of all those different applications, but you can break out of Teams too. You can go to other telephone platforms, you can go to other contact center platforms, you can go to other auto attendant consoles. And anything of that kind of thing, that kind of design, you can bring it all together in the cloud, and you can do it quite easily, especially if you're planning to like bring in a PSTN range that's got a lot of mixed numbers. You might have something going to some Teams auto attendants. Those might split out into different Teams queues. You might have other ones going into a Teams contact center. You might even have another one going into a scaled standalone contact center. It might be going to Dynamics, it might be going to some of the other third-party ones. But you can really mix and match all of that now, and it doesn't mean that you have to go down a route of choosing one or the other. If you get your architecture right in the cloud and get your sort of base capabilities right, then you can bring anything together, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're not locking yourself in, and because everything is SaaS these days as well, it gives you some flexibility on. I'm not making necessarily a 3-year platform decision. Obviously, there's a business cost of change of flipping platforms, but I think for most customers, they're going to have a mix because they don't need the biggest, most complex contact center in the world for their internal help desk, and they equally the capabilities of Q's app isn't going to meet the customer facing, multi 10 seats to multi 100 seat contact center. But you don't know, to your point earlier in the conversation, you don't know where that line will be in 3 years. Like Teams might get more native capabilities. Some new ecosystem vendor doing something magic in AI might pop up. I want the capability to choose different options later and not lock myself into kind of a one platform strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if you were locked into Microsoft and to the different options involved in Teams, at least you've got that kind of ability to first enhance it a bit, and then you can extend it a little bit, and then you can definitely scale it with the extensibility that's come out this year. That again sort of gives you that ability to leverage Teams again, but pump those calls into Dynamics. So you've still got that kind of scale idea and options, really. So you're still not limiting yourself. But on the other hand, with the integrate model, you anything that comes along, really, you can integrate into it. So I feel like the best answer isn't really one or the other. I think the best answer is really to have both, because they both bring with them some useful kind of pros, and really the only drawback of the integrate model is just the complexity. So if you choose the right way to integrate it, then that takes that away and just gives you all of the sort of unlimited scale and scope of features.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Alice, for taking us through those kind of different options. If people want to have a longer conversation about their environment and how they can bring those options to their environment, how can they reach out to you or the team?
There's a number of different ways through the website, for sure. You can reach most of us on LinkedIn too, and you can also get in touch with our sort of sales and marketing team as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alistair, for those insights, and we'll see you again another one soon.
Thank you.